Candy looked for help from face to face. It was quite dark outside by now. A young laboring man came in. His sloping shoulders were bent forward, and he walked heavily on his heels, as though he carried an invisible grain bag. He went to his bunk and put his hat on a shelf. Then he picked a pulp magazine from a shelf and brought it to the light over the table. "Did I show you this, Slim?" he asked.
"Show me what?"
The young man turned to the back of the magazine, put it down on the table, and pointed with his finger. "Right there, read that." Slim bent over it. "Go on," said the young man. "Read it out loud."
"Dear Editor," Slim read slowly, "I read your mag for 6 years, and I think it is the best on the market. I like stories by Peter Rand. I think he is a wing-ding. Give us more like The Dark Rider. I don't write many letters. Just thought I would tell you I think your mag is the best dime's worth I ever spent."
Slim looked up questioningly.
"What you want me to read that for?"
Whit said, "Go on. Read the name at the bottom."
Slim read, "Yours for success, William Tenner."
He glanced up at Whit again.
"What do you want me to read that for?"
Whit closed the magazine impressively. "Don't you remember Bill Tenner? Worked here about 3 months ago?"
Slim thought. "Little guy?" he asked. "Drove a cultivator?"
"That's him!" Whit cried. "That's the guy!"
"You think he's the guy that wrote this letter?"
"I know it. Bill and me was in here one day. Bill had one of those books that just come. He was looking at it and he says, 'I wrote a letter. Wonder if they put it in the book.' But it wasn't there," Bill says. "Maybe they're saving it for later." And that's just what they done. There it is.
"Guess you're right," said Slim. "Got it right in the book."
George held out his hand for the magazine. "Let's look at it?" Whit found the place again, but he did not surrender his hold on it. He pointed out the letter with his forefinger, and then he went to his box shelf and laid the magazine carefully in. "I wonder if Bill's seen it," he said. "Bill and me worked in that patch of field peas. Run cultivators, both of us. Bill was a heck of a nice fella." During the conversation, Carlson had refused to be drawn in. He continued to look down at the old dog. Candy watched him uneasily. At last Carlson said, "If you want me to, I'll put the old devil out of his misery right now and get it over with. Ain't nothing left for him. Can't eat, can't see, can't even walk without hurting." Candy said hopefully, "You ain't got no gun." "Heck, I ain't. Got a Luger. It won't hurt him none at all." Candy said, "Maybe tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow." "I don't see no reason for it," said Carlson. He went to his bunk, pulled his bag from underneath it, and took out a Luger pistol. "Let's get it over with," he said. "We can't sleep with him stinking around in here." He put the pistol in his hip pocket. Candy looked a long time at Slim to find some reversal, and Slim gave him none. At last Candy said softly and hopelessly, "All right. Take him." He did not look down at the dog at all. He lay back on his bunk and crossed his arms behind his head and stared at the ceiling. From his pocket Carlson took a little leather thong. He stooped over and tied it around the old dog's neck. All the men except Candy watched him. "Come, boy. Come on, boy," he said gently, and he said apologetically to Candy, "He won't even feel it." Candy did not move nor answer him. He twitched the thong. "Come on, boy." The old dog got slowly and stiffly to his feet and followed the gently pulling leash.
Slim said, "Carlson."
"Yeah?"
"You know what to do."
"What you mean, Slim?"
"Take a shovel," said Slim shortly.
"Oh, sure, I get you." He led the dog out into the darkness. George followed to the door and shut the door and set the latch gently in its place. Candy lay rigidly on his bed staring at the ceiling.
Slim said loudly, "One of my lead mules got a bad hoof. Got to get some tar on it." His voice trailed off. It was silent outside. Carlson's footsteps died away. The silence came into the room, and the silence lasted. George chuckled. "I bet Lenny's right out there in the barn with his pup. He won't want to come in here no more now he's got a pup." Slim said, "Candy, you can have any one of them pups you want." Candy did not answer. The silence fell on the room again. It came out of the night and invaded the room. George said, "Anybody like to play a little euchre?" "I'll play out a few with you," said Whit. They took places opposite each other at the table under the light, but George did not shuffle the cards. He rippled the edge of the desk nervously, and the little snapping noise drew the eyes of all the men in the room, so that he stopped doing it. The silence fell on the room again. A minute passed, and another minute. Candy lay still, staring at the ceiling. Slim gazed at him for a moment, and then looked down at his hands. He subdued one hand with the other and held it down. There came a little gnawing sound from under the floor, and all the men looked down and toward it gratefully. Only Candy continued to stare at the ceiling. "Sounds like there's a rat under there," said George. "We ought to get a trap down there." Whit broke out. "What the heck's taking him so long? Lay out some cards, why don't you? We ain't gonna get no euchre played this way." George brought the cards together tightly and studied the backs of them. The silence was in the room again. A shot sounded in the distance. The men looked quickly at the old man. Every head turned toward him. For a moment he continued to stare at the ceiling. Then he rolled over slowly and faced the wall and lay silent. George shuffled the cards noisily and dealt them. Whit drew a scoring board to him and set the pegs to start. Whit said, "I guess you guys really come here to work." "How do you mean?" George asked. Whit laughed. "Well, come on a Friday. You got 2 days to work till Sunday." "I don't see how you figure," said George. Whit laughed again. "You do if you've been around these big ranches much. Guys that want to look over a ranch comes in Saturday afternoon. He gets Saturday night supper and 3 meals on Sunday, and he can quit Monday morning after a breakfast without turning his hand. But you come to work Friday noon. You got to put in a day and a half no matter how you figure." George looked at him levelly. "We gonna stick around a while. Me and Lenny's gonna roll up a steak." The door opened quietly, and the stable buck put in his head, a lean head, lined with pain, the eyes patient. "Mr. Slim." Slim took his eyes from old Candy. "Huh? Oh, hello, Crooks. What's the matter?" "You told me to warm up tar for that mule's foot. I got it warm." "Oh, sure, Crooks. I'll come right out and put it on." "I can do it if you want, Mr. Slim." "No, I'll come do it myself." He stood up. Crooks said, "Mr. Slim." "Yeah?" "That big guy's messing with your pups out in the barn." "Well, he ain't doing no harm. I gave him one of them pups." "Just thought I'd tell you," said Crooks. "He's taking 'em out of the nest and handling 'em. That won't do him no good." "He won't hurt him," said Slim. "I'll come along with you now." George looked up. "If that crazy jerk's fooling around too much, just kick him out, Slim." Slim followed the stable buck out of the room. George dealt, and Whit picked up his cards and examined them. "Seen the new kid yet?" he asked. "What kid?" George asked. "Why, Curly's new wife." "Yeah, I seen her." "Well, ain't she a Lulu?" "I ain't seen that much of her," said George. Whit laid down his cards impressively. "Well, stick around and keep your eyes open. You'll see plenty. She ain't concealing nothing. I never seen nobody like her. She got the eye going all the time on everybody.
I bet she even gives the stable buck the eye. I don't know what the heck she wants. George asked casually, "Been in any trouble since she got here?" It was obvious that Whit was not interested in his cards. He laid his hand down, and George scooped it in. George laid out his deliberate solitaire hand. 7 cards, and 6 on top, and 5 on top of those. Whit said, "I see what you mean. No, there ain't been nothing yet. Curly's got yellow jackets in his drawers, but that's all so far. Every time the guys is around, she shows up. She's looking for Curly. If these shots she left something laying around, and she's looking for it. Seems like she can't keep away from guys. And Curly's pants is just crawling with ants. But there ain't nothing come of it yet." George said, "She's going to make a mess. There's going to be a big mess about her. She's a jailbait all set on the trigger. That Curly got his work cut out for him. Ranch with a bunch of guys on ain't no place for a girl, especially like her." Which 2 characters aren't given a first name? What can we infer about them since they aren't given first names? Whit said, "If you got ideas, you ought to come into town with us guys tomorrow night." "Why? What's doing?" "Just the usual thing. We go into old Susie's place." "Heck of a nice place. Old Susie's a laugh, always cracking jokes. Like she says when we come up on the front porch last Saturday night. Susie opens the door and then she yells over her shoulders, 'Get your coats on, girls. Here comes the sheriff.' She never talks dirty, neither. Got 5 girls there." "What's it set you back?" George asked. 2.5. You can get a shot for 2 bits. Susie got nice chairs to sit in, too. If a guy don't want to flop, why, he can just sit in the chairs and have a couple or 3 shots and pass the time of day, and Susie don't give a darn. She ain't rushing guys through and kicking them out if they don't want to flop." "Might go in and look the joint over," said George. "Sure. Come along. It's a heck of a lot of fun. Her cracking jokes all the time. Like she says one time, she says, 'I've knew people that if they got a rag rug on the floor and a coupe doll lamp on the phonograph, they think they're running a parlor house.' That's Clara's house she's talking about. And Susie says, 'I know what you boys want,' she says. 'My girls is clean,' she says, 'and there ain't no water in my whiskey,' she says. 'If any of you guys want to look at a coupe doll lamp and take your own chance getting burned, why, you know where to go.' And she says, 'There's guys around here walking bow-legged 'cause they like to look at a coupe doll lamp.'" George asked, "Clara runs the other house, huh?" "Yeah," said Whit. "We don't never go there. Clara get $3 a crack and 35 cents a shot. She don't crack no jokes. But Susie's place is clean and she got nice chairs. Don't let no goo-goos in either." What might be a modern version of Susie's house? "Me and Lenny's rolling up a steak," said George. "I might go in and sit and have a shot, but I'm putting out no 2.5. "Well, a guy gotta have some fun sometime," said Whit. The door opened, and Lenny and Carlson came in together. Lenny crept to his bunk and sat down, trying not to attract attention. Carlson reached under his bunk and brought out his bag. He didn't look at old Candy, who still faced the wall. Carlson found a little cleaning rod in the bag and a can of oil. He laid them on his bed, and then he brought out the pistol, took out the magazine, and snapped the loaded check from the chamber. Then he fell to cleaning the barrel with the little rod. When the ejector snapped, Candy turned over and looked for a moment at the gun before he turned back to the wall again. Carlson said casually, "Curly been in yet?" "No," said Whit. "What's eating on Curly?" Carlson squinted down the barrel of his gun. "Looking for his old lady. I seen him going round and round outside," Whit said sarcastically. "He spends half his time looking for her, and the rest of the time she's looking for him." Curly burst into the room excitedly. "Any of you guys seen my wife?" he demanded. "She ain't been here," said Whit. Curly looked threateningly into the room. "Where the heck's Slim?" "Went out in the barn," said George. "He was going to put some tar on a split hoof." Curly's shoulders dropped and squared. "How long ago'd he go?" 5-10 minutes. Curly jumped out the door and banged it after him.